Cool. Let's go. Hey everybody, welcome to Talk Car Wash Connect Live. Our mission at Talk Car Wash is to connect with the car wash community on insight and advice from car washes around the world so that we continue to better our industry.
Today's topic is boost your car wash game with Vertech Labs.
A few housekeeping items. If something catches your ear, you have a question, hit the raise hand button. We'll unmute you and you can come up and discuss. If you have any questions you'd like to discreetly ask, shoot Blake and I a DM and we'll take care of them for you. And these events will be stored on Talk Car Wash accounts, so you can go back and watch them. Soon they'll come to our educational library.
Yeah, and we'd like to welcome a few guest speakers tonight's convo. Jami and Matt from Vertech Labs. If each of you could take a moment and tell us a little bit of who you are and what you do at Vertech Labs. Ladies first.
Hi, I'm Jamie Sloan. I'm the technical director at Vertech Labs. Work in the lab. I've been here 11 years now, and I do everything from overseeing the quality control, product development, really working closely with the field if there's issues out there, and new product development, that sort of thing.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing. And Matt?
Yeah, hi. My name is Matt Satry. I work in the Minneapolis market and I do sales and account management. Been with the company going on 8 years here.
Great.
So yeah, thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys for joining us today. And to the people in our audience, thank you for joining the conversation. If you guys have any questions at any time, feel free to interject and unmute yourself. And, we're happy to answer those questions. And then we'll also open it up for more of a Q&A at the end. And then also for the people in the future that watch this video, if you ever have any questions from watching this, you can reach out to myself or Tyler or any of the Vertech team members here directly. So we'll kind of get right into things here and jump into the conversation. So I have a question for you guys, Jami and Matt. What should operators think about when selecting a chemical company? A chemical company should be, making life easier for an operator. So how would you guys both speak to that independently?
Well, I can kind of start it off here. And I
Great.
think I think the biggest thing right now is customer service and support. There seems to be, a little plenty opportunity for you know, good customer service support. Obviously, you need someone that's going to help you identify some issues. Inefficiencies is a big thing. And just strive to make your customer the best wash in their market. Product quality is a huge thing. Obviously, with all the new technology out there, there's a lot of different types of chemicals, pre-soaks. So different types of soils, different types of dirt, geographical areas can be, very different. So I think the ability to differentiate, your offerings to customers to support them in the area that they're in. Customization and flexibility is a big one. So is there a customer that, has a special need or, hey, we want to differentiate ourselves from the wash down the street. So, what do you have that we can do that with?
Mhm.
So able to adapt to the customer's, wants and needs is huge. I would say, something along the lines of support and training. Customer support's a huge thing. Training's also very big. We at Vertech Labs have a very, very good training program for our customers. Different tiers, tier one, tier two, tier three. Something as simple as, what is car wash chemicals? What is soap? What's high pH? What's low pH? So I think just a lot of the, support and training. And obviously, not, last but not least is cost effectiveness. So obviously quality is number one, but obviously cost plays a big, big factor of that. So are we be able to be competitive with, your previous chemical supplier? So I think, yeah, that's a few things I think customers look at.
Great.
Yeah,
Thank you for your answer.
I definitely agree with Matt's points. From a lab standpoint, I would hit on the product quality and just ensuring that the customer is getting a consistent product with every shipment. So when you order XYZ, you are always getting XYZ. It's made in production with the exact same raw materials, kind of qualified suppliers, qualified raw materials, just so that the customer isn't always getting something inconsistent performance out in the field.
Awesome. Thank you guys. So when you think about switching chemicals, most of us have, uh, most of us expect a positive change in some performance or pricing. However, something that I was really surprised by were a lot of the operational changes that I went through this kind of firsthand, but these things didn't come up when I was talking to Tony. And funny story for most of you that know Tony, for about probably 2 years, he kept telling me how great his chemistry was, how I needed to give it a try. And as most of you know with vendors, when you have a vendor like that that blows smoke, you stay away from them. And I kind of got in a pinch there for a little while to where I was needing to try some new vendors. And Tony said, "Give me 30 days. I'll take your current stuff offline, put ours on. If we don't perform, I'll come pull it back out, put your stuff back online. It won't cost you anything but just giving us time." And that was one of the best decisions I made in the last, I guess, 3 years now. So, um, some of the things that we weren't expecting, and I'm sure Matt and Jamie can kind of speak to it, were when we swapped from our prior chemical company to Vertech. We used to clean our foamers out every week. If you didn't, you'd start getting a lot of backups, a lot of this yellow and slimy stuff on there. Haven't had that since switching to Vertech. Our floors were real slippery in the tunnel in certain areas. Haven't had that since switching to Vertech. Our trenches, so the pit down the center, they were always extremely full. I mean, it wasn't uncommon to get 3 or 4 55-gallon drums out when we clean them monthly. And last check, we were getting just a few buckets out of them. Car counts went up, it hasn't went down. So that one was pretty cool. And there were a lot of little things, just like scheduled maintenance got a lot easier with your reclaim basket. Didn't have any, this, the smell was a big thing with our prior chemical person. We had a huge smell. That was pretty much gone in about 72 hours. And then we worked with them on SKU management. So we went from our old chemical company, we had 16 SKUs and we went down to 9, including tire shine. So there were a lot of things that, they didn't give me all these things. They didn't tell me all these things. They just told me that their chemistry worked really well and I wouldn't have any. Those two things kind of sold me.
Oh, you can't find the character?
So Matt, Jamie, either one of you guys want to speak to those things?
Yeah, I can kind of touch on some of that. So I think some of the operational changes and benefits that you were finding were from our reclaim compatible chemistry. So I feel like that's kind of our niche in the industry is the reclaim compatible chemicals we have and the product line we have. It's not just an additive or something we add into a reclaim system to make it function better. It's actually the way in which we formulate. I am in the lab today and I'm very much a demonstration type person. So if you guys don't mind, show you a little bit of our lab here, and maybe even demonstrate to you what it means to be reclaim compatible. Might do some shifting around here. Let's see. Hopefully you guys can see this okay.
Yeah, that's
So it's
great.
kind of all in the way the materials we use in our formulations. And I like to think of the wash as basically a front end and a back end where we're cleaning the vehicles up front, um, going through our pre-soaks, our prep guns, foam detergents, that sort of thing. And the chemistry in there plays nice with the chemistry in the drying agent end. So here I have 2 beakers. Again, we're all about safety here. So I always recommend wearing gloves. And these beakers right here are just going to represent our reclaim system and what you would see down in an actual like settling tank. And here's just water, our rinse water for if we're rinsing down in that reclaim tank. And on our reclaim compatible reclaim tank, this will be up front, our pre-soaks, our prep guns, our foam detergents. This would be the products that we're basically formulating with. Mix that into water. Here is a non-reclaim compatible product line. Kind of the industry standard on how to formulate. A little bit can be a little bit cheaper. Does produce very dense, thick foam, a little bit harder to rinse. But the biggest thing it struggles with is being compatible with the drying agent end. So now if I was to go in, this is your reclaim pit here with just all your cleaning products. Now, as the car goes down the tunnel, it hits the drying agent and protectant end. When those drying agent and protectants hit this reclaim pit, you can see that chemistries play really nice together. We don't have any incompatibility. Now, when this moves down into the drying agent protectant end there, you can start to see that cloudiness form, and hopefully that's coming through on video.
It is, yeah.
Yep, you can see it.
So the chemistries there are incompatible with one another. And what happens here is this doesn't allow the oils to kind of come up and the dirt to settle down, kind of traps them within the water column. They start to kind of agglomerate and build. Bad bacteria starts to grow, and that's where you get a lot of that smell. So what Tyler kind of experienced when you do switch over to Vertech Labs, if this is what your pit kind of smells and maybe looks like, as you begin to use reclaim compatible chemistry, you are able to kind of shift that system. Maybe we'll mix some of that up. And you are able to start cleaning it up over time. So it's all in kind of the formulation of the chemistries there.
Funny, when we were at the lab doing the demos with Jamie, she was telling us how to mix this stuff. And I was paying attention and I was just dumping it all in. She was like, whoa, 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 whoa.
Yeah.
You made your own drying agent, right?
I did.
Yep.
Yeah.
And,
What do you need Vertech for?
Jamie, maybe you can lean in here too on the importance of the water quality in the wash. And we talked about reclaim compatibility with chemistry here, but when you talk about the quality of the water at the location, maybe you could speak to some of the depth and nuances there, that just how important water is when it comes to achieving clean shine and drying.
Yeah, so I mean, what you guys are washing with out in the car wash is, I mean, 99% water. So obviously the better the quality of the water, the better the wash is going to be, the cleaner the car is going to be. Anything, it's kind of interesting because we do training here on site, and I could actually pull up that demo as well just to show you guys what a high pH pre-soak would do versus in a hard water situation versus a soft water situation. But a lot of people think that when they're in 7, 8 grains of water that they're in soft water conditions, but actually at 3.5 grains per gallon, which we measure here with the kit that we get. This is the kit we like. It's from Hatch or Hawk, depending on how you want to say it. But this actually measures kind of the dissolved minerals and ions within the water and expresses it as grains per gallon. So this is very important to us. We put this in all of our sales reps titration kits, kind of teach our customers about water quality. Because a lot of times if they have a soft water softener on hand, sometimes it's not operational. And so when they do this test, they'll find that they're getting hard water situations, which will impact cleaning. I can show you guys something there as well.
I was going to say, kind of a common misconception also is, everybody assumes that, hey, my water softener is using salt. So obviously the water is soft, correct? And that's definitely not true. So softeners can still be using the correct amount of salt, and you can still have, extremely hard water. So it's very important, obviously, to have a hardness test kit on site. And, I would say, I tell all my customers to check it daily. If something happens and you run into some hard water, especially up here, in the Midwest where we got 25 to 30 grains of hardness, 1, 2 days of hard water, you're gonna, start seeing some issues. So good thing to check it.
I think you're pretty spot on with that too, because when Tony came to our sites, that's something he made us aware of. He was like, I don't think any of your water softeners are working. And I was like, well, sure they are. They're all using salt. Well, they were
Right.
using salt, but none of them were using them correctly. So that was an
Right.
check for us. Now I think it's a weekly check for us, not a daily.
Yep.
But
That's good.
urine and I just assumed they all needed the same. But once we started testing our water at each site, every one of the settings had to be different on the water softeners to get the right
Wow.
result. Man,
Right.
we got schooled for sure.
Yep.
And Jamie, before you go any further,
Yeah.
Matt, how, or both of you guys, how often should someone be testing their water? Like, is that a daily thing? Is it a weekly thing? Is it a monthly thing? What is your guys' recommendation from a chemical provider? Is like, what's an appropriate measure?
Right. I would say, if I owned a wash, I'd be checking it every morning. It's a very, very simple, quick check. It takes 2 minutes at the most. And that just ensures that, it's going to be, working correctly. If you check it once a week and say, you don't know it's broke till it breaks. So
Yeah.
if you check it on a Monday and something goes bad Tuesday, you're going to be suffering that whole week. So it's just a very, very simple test. I would say once a week is, sufficient, but
Mhm.
the more often the better, especially if you're in a really bad area with some, really bad incoming water.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Go ahead,
agree because
Jamie.
you're able to just catch problems before they even start if you're
Yeah.
checking it daily. But definitely anytime you have issues, the first thing we check is water
Right.
hardness.
Yeah,
So,
when we started that with you guys, we actually started it daily, and then our team made the recommendation that, usually the water quality isn't what changes quickly. You're pretty much going to get the water quality for a while at the site. So mechanical failures what we were running into, whether it was a check valve or something going on inside the head on the water
Right.
softener, it was a mechanical failure. So our team went to once a week, and we've caught quite a few issues since then, but we've been able to resolve them quickly and get it dialed back in. So operator suggestion once a week has seemed to serve us well.
Yep.
I think for our teams, Matt, I'd love to tell you it takes them about 2 minutes to check it, but by the
Right.
time they get an actual cup, they swish the water around and it pour it out so that you have clean water, not tainted water, and then they test it. It takes a little bit, and then they have to report
Yeah.
to the facilities director. But that was something I was thankful that Tony and his team taught us, because that's not something that we did. So water quality wasn't something on my list.
And that's very common, Tyler. Very, very common to have, operators that have been washing cars for years, say, hey, is water this important? And the answer is yes. So a lot of operators just don't know that, you know, good water quality is a very important piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, and something that we noticed that an effect too by specifically, Tony and Bryant Reuter was so bright had a suggestion to put ROR on our first board to help with the foam, to help with the cleaning, and of course to reuse the water that was getting rejected out of the spot free system. That made a big difference, helped lower the water cost, and then a lot of the suggestions from Vertech on the way we should move things around the tunnel, tip sizes that we should change, fan leaks as far as the fan on the tip, and like I said, we were able to significantly reduced our costs when it comes to water, and that was a big part of it. So all that stuff's just kind of added up on our end. So this is a question because I know how important it is to us, and we didn't really understand it. When you talk about how Vertec taught us how to do titrations with my teams, and I noticed when we were doing it, and I was going out in the field, that a lot of people would talk about volumetrics or they would talk about mils, but titration is something that just didn't show up a lot. Why is titration so important, Jamie?
let's put this back up. So we hear a lot about actually testing pH versus titration, which is something we um, don't agree with there. pH is basically just a numerical measure to let you know if something's acidic or alkaline, if it's on the low pH pre-soak side or the high pH pre-soak side. But when we talk about titration, that actually allows us to test the actual concentration of the product being used. So there's a color change that happens. You count the number of drops, and then you're able to correlate that to an actual dilution ratio. And I have, again, I'm a very visual person, so I might pop up and screen share just a chart that I think would make some sense to,
Yeah, and I have it allowed, so you could go ahead.
okay, see if I can get this.
And while she's doing that, everyone that is currently listening, if you have any questions regarding chemistry or how to wash cars more effectively or utilize an open-ended, someone in the lab, multiple team members here, feel free to ask any question, whether it's in the chat or unmuting yourself. You can join the conversation at any time.
And yes, and so more to Tyler's question, mills versus titration, two totally different things. Obviously, that can be relatable. Um, Mills is obviously the volume of product that you're using. Titration is the strength or the dilution ratio of that product. So just because somebody says, hey, set this up at 5 mils, doesn't mean anything. I mean, that'll tell you your cost per car, and that's it. It's not going to tell you the dilution, the strength of the chemical. So, and that all plays a huge difference, with injector sizing, nozzle sizing. If I take 5 mils of product of pre-soak, with a 1 gallon per minute injector, I'm going to have a dilution ratio of 64 to 1. If I take that same amount of chemical and put it into a 5 gallon per minute injector, I'm going to have, a lot more diluted solution. So another misconception is, hey, set this up at 5 mils or set it up at 10 mils. We tend to set everything up by dilution ratio. And then another big thing too is, if we're not able to achieve the usage that we want to achieve, we can always vary it with, equipment, dispensers, injector sizes, nozzle sizes. So yeah, two totally different things.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you, Jami.
So to go, are you guys able to see my screen here?
We are not.
The pH versus titration.
We're looking at you.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Let's see if I can try that
Hit
again.
hit your green arrow down there,
Let's see if
or
I
your
can.
green box per se in the middle of the screen.
There we go.
There.
Now it's coming through.
Is that working? If I can make this
Got it.
green, maybe.
Jami, you're a pro.
I don't know about that. Anyways, yes, on Matt's point too, yeah, the mils is great for understanding the cost per car. Titration will give us the strength. So what we have here, this red line here is a pH. I'm basically looking at like a high pH pre-soak here and ounces per gallon. And then this blue line is the titration. So you can see here that once you get up about 1.5 ounces per gallon, the pH is going to stay the same, whether you're using 1.5, 2 ounces, 4, or 5 ounces per gallon. So you could be way overusing that product by just looking at pH, where it's better. Titration is more linear and proportional. So it will give you the number of drops over here. So if you're at 2 ounces per gallon, it'll let you know you're at about 10 drops, which then correlates to a dilution. And then at 4 drops, you'll see that you're up at 15. So this really gives you the strength of the product. And then the usage, the mils used would then give you the cost per car.
Man, you guys got it figured out. This is kind of a good segue into the visit that my team had up there for the customer day when we got to kind of make our own chemistry and test that stuff out. And Jami was whizzing us with all this scientist stuff and giving us chemicals to pour together to try to blow things up. We succeeded at that.
I heard you did good, Tyler.
Yeah. When you think about like the stuff that we did that day, and you talked about specifically the one that stuck with my team was the drying agent and how important, every piece of the chemistry is important, but the drying agent is super important for the finished product. And you showed us that hood with the little fingers,
Yep.
grabbers or whatever.
I have that if you want me to show it.
And you should definitely show that. That was something
Okay.
that visual was really good for our teams.
Okay. So yeah, we have a thing here called Visit Vertech Day where we really like to try teach the customers. We feel like the more they understand, the easier it is for them to troubleshoot and understand what the products are doing out in the field, what their function is, maybe when they run into issues. So during the training session, we talk a little bit about drying agents and what they do, what they are. This is a hood here, just a very small car wash hood. But a drying agent is basically made up, the active portion of it is an oil. The oil is what's going to be hydrophobic and leave that surface that's going to allow water to bead. But you obviously can't mix oil into water. So then we need to use an emulsifier or a surfactant. So here, the little thing Tyler was talking about actually shows us what a surfactant kind of would look like. Interesting thing here about drying agents, they're always cationic in nature or positively charged, and that's because the surface of your vehicle is negatively charged. So we want this to adhere to the vehicle surface, so it's going to have that positive charge. Now, the head of this surfactant is water loving, and then the tail here is oil loving. So what's happening when we mix basically an emulsifier or surfactant like this in with the oil and the water. We bring the oil into solution. When you guys are applying it out in the field, what's happening is that positively charged head of that surfactant is attracted to the surface of the vehicle, and it pulls that oil along the surface, creating this like super hydrophobic surface that then allows water to bead. So the gist of it. And then I think we get a lot of questions about as you start to use more or you're layering more and more and more products, you're actually seeing a wetter vehicle surface. And so that is because I'm just grabbing a couple more of these. That is because as we're layering and layering and layering more, I'm putting more surfactants on. Again, this is an oil loving tail, so it's going to want to stick to the oil portion of the oil portion here. It's hard to keep this all balanced. And now instead of the hydrophobic oil on your surface, you now have a surfactant, which is more hydrophilic, or, water. It basically wants to spread water, and that's why you get a wetter surface. So you don't want to keep layering and layering and layering and seeing more product usage and getting kind of that water loving layer. You want that oil loving layer. So if you want to continue to add products because you want to boost packages, you just have to remember you got to play with dilutions of some things. You might need to pull something back to be able to add this on. And there's no clear cut answer on that. I feel like it's just better to have knowledge of how these things work, but it's all going to be site specific and what's going on in the vehicle and how much is going to work for a customer.
Yeah, and I think, a good example of that is when Matt and team came into our sites and we were applying drying agent, sealer wax, ceramic, graphene, and hot wax. And they were like, man, you don't have to put all those on the vehicle, give the ones for the package that they purchased. So
Right.
got some of the other ones off. And then even when you get graphene, we don't have to put drying agent on because there's so much already on the car that it does the job. But, you know, majority of the chemical companies that you're going to deal with, they want you to put all of those on. That's cost. Vertech cares about the end product, and that's what was important to us, is making sure the car comes out. It's not about applying more and more waxes and chemistry. It's about making sure the car coming out into the tunnel is meeting your expectations and the customers. So thank you for explaining that, Jamie. It was that was great, but it's definitely much better in person for any of you that haven't gone up for any of you that haven't gone up and done the customer day. It's pretty cool. I just want to take a second. Is there anybody that's got a question? You can unmute and ask it. If you've never been on the phone or a Zoom video with a chemist, Jamie is definitely one, and she can blow your mind. And then Matt's a pretty handy guy too. So
I got one from the audience. Someone messaged me.
yeah.
So Jamie and Matt, and maybe even someone else can chime in. Could you talk about the overuse of tire shine and how to properly set per car, and why so much, like why so many washes are putting so much on? Like, is that necessary? Like, can you kind of speak to what your guys' kind of general recommendation is when it comes to, whether it's a silicone or a water-based, or kind of the nuances of tire shine application?
Yeah, so I can go ahead. Obviously we all know that tire shine's a pain in the butt, right? But I don't think there's any way of getting around it.
Yeah.
So obviously, with the different equipment out there, the different applicators, it's there's not really a fixed amount to use. It's basically, what do we have to do to keep the tire, covered? It's very difficult to apply tire shine to every single tire out there. Different size tires, low profile, high profile. Um, so, as a general, I would say obviously no more than it takes to cover the tire. There's tire shines out there that are, solvent based, water based. How do I know which one to choose? Some of the applicators now have a hard time applying a thicker product. So in those instances, we have to go with a thinner product, solvent-based product. People care about sling. Sling is a big thing. That's kind of
Yes,
my,
sir.
yeah. So yeah, so sling's a big thing. A lot of customers say, "Hey, I don't care what I'm using. I don't want the cars to have tire shine all over the fenders and doors, and so something like a water-based tire dressing, works in that spot." Um, So yeah, it's roughly around. I mean, I would say as an average, half an ounce of tire shine, 15 mils is usually sufficient to cover a tire. Again, they take a lot of maintenance. Um, keep them cleaned out as often as you can, just to ensure better, you know, uh, distribution on the brush.
Matt, on
Yeah.
that one that you were just talking about, we just had a question about the tire shine leaving black residue on larger wheels and things. Some we've tried reducing, increasing, but can't get it right. I think that's one that we've got pretty aggressively ahead of with preventive maintenance. But once a week, we spray the entire brush out with a pressure washer. Well, they spray it down with Dawn, which
Right.
helps release some of the grease.
Yep.
And then they spray it out with a pressure washer. And then our teams take what we call bar towels or just white towels. When the brush runs, we just kind of run it across the bottom. And
Perfect.
we
Yep.
do that every week at all of our sites. We also blow out the manifolds. We have a little quick connect fitting that hooks up to our air hose, and we'll
Yep.
actually hook it into the back where the tire shine line goes to blow all the holes in the manifold out. But by doing that, we've been able to make the application pretty consistent and then keep up with the PM. We don't have any, the black residue that gets on the tires. But when you
Right.
continually let it build up on a black, greasy, dirty tire and it rubs against the brush, at some point you got to clean it.
Right. Because, and to your point, not a whole lot of washes have, tire scrubbers, with a soap. So in theory, when you're scrubbing that tire with the tire shine machine, I mean, you're taking off essentially all the dirt that's off that tire. If it's not getting clean previous. So you are going to get a lot of buildup on that brush. So like what Tyler's doing is, cleaning that brush out, pressure washing, um, blowing out that manifold. It's again, it's pain in the butt, but it's definitely necessary to keep up a consistent product.
Yeah, and something that we had done with Tony too when we were having some issues like that is he was like, "Hey, let's make sure your CTAs are working." In the car wash world, when the CTAs are working, right before it gets to the wrap, you kind of see it turn that orange, that wheel and tire kind of turn that orangish brownish color when the CTAs are working.
Yep,
And that was something that wasn't happening. Our prior chemical company had turned it way down. So you got to make sure that you get the wheel clean up front too. So that's a big part of it before it goes through the tire brush.
absolutely. Yep, for sure.
Awesome. Jamie, you got anything you want to add in on the tire shine part?
Tony knows how much we love to formulate tire dressings here because it is very specific, I feel like, to the applicator. It is really hard because I think it's a lot has to do with viscosity, the thickness or thinness of it, and how well it's going to be applied. So we do work a lot with tire dressings in the lab and trying to get that right, not just viscosity wise, but shine wise, durability, all that. So
Right.
yeah.
We had kind of covered this one a little bit, but when you talk about it's important to consider rinsing and the tops numbers of protectants that are going in the vehicle prior to drying. With kind of the ceramics, the graphenes, there's all kind of stuff coming out. Jamie, what would your suggestion be? Like for us, I know we apply drying agent to every package except for the one that has the graphene because it kind of takes care of it itself. But when you get down to kind of the finishing area, would you say, one, two, three, what's your max that you want to place on a car and still be able to put out a clean shot drying car?
I really try to leave that up to the customer because I know some customers like to add another protectant onto a package because they feel that they're offering more to the customer. The customer's paying more for that. So it's really dependent on, I guess, how you want to market your packages. But if
Yeah.
you are going to have something like an all surface protectant, a clear coat protectant, a ceramic, and a graphene, it's just really working with, getting the right dilutions of each so that we're not over layering and wetting out the surface and giving the customer a good, nice, dry car.
You
Yeah.
know,
And on that, Matt, go ahead. Sorry, I can remember mine. Go ahead.
oh, that's right. Usually we typically, stick with three protectants. Uh, once you start going more, then you start doing the layering effect, and it actually does the adverse effect as breaking the water. So yeah, we try to stick to three. Obviously, there's some customers out there that want to put more on, so we'll tell them why or why not.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah,
Yeah.
I would say the industry, I would say three for sure at the most.
Jamie, something that I was just thinking about, and I'm gonna throw you off guard with a question that we didn't prep for.
Yeah,
So,
that's fine.
uh, something that we've noticed is we used to have a lot of problems with our waxes and things like that. The foamers would clog up. I mean, we would have to clean those things every couple of days. There'd be like a snot residue inside them, and you'd have to keep them cleaned out. Why doesn't that do that with Vertec?
I think again, some of the raw material choices we make, because we've noticed there's some raw materials that I work with in the lab that'll tend to gel or gum up, like if they're left to evaporate with water, or separate out easier. They just seem more finicky in production, in storage, in the field. So we kind of shy away from those and find alternatives that still provide all the attributes and the performances we want, but without the finicky results you see in the field.
Got it. That makes sense. I was just
Yeah.
just curious. That's something that we used to battle a lot. So
Yep. Yeah, there's definitely some raw materials out there that will kind of, as water evaporates off or over time, start to kind of create a film. And that's the active material. You don't want that coming out of solution because that's what's providing the customer the performance attributes. So it's really about choosing the right raw materials and formulating to where they stay in solution over time and in application. So,
got it. Thank you.
yep.
And that's obviously build up inside the foamer too. I know you spoke earlier about not having to change inserts as often. We have some customers that before coming aboard that we had changing foamers every 30 days.
Hmm.
And that gets very expensive. I mean, those things are whatever, 40, $50 a piece. So I mean, that's a lot of wasted money that you don't need to spend. Um,
Yeah.
so I would say, typically in a good water situation with a good product, you shouldn't have to change the foamer, once a year. I would say, once every month or so, spray them out. But yeah, to actually replace them, you can go a long time.
Something that
Yeah.
Tony and I have talked about quite a few times that I don't think a lot of people measure is the labor cost on that. We put some numbers to it, but those attendants that are going out there, that especially most of them are managers, your maintenance department that are cleaning those, taking them apart daily, weekly, etc. Man, they've got a heck of a, cost that goes to just them, minus replacing all the foamer and everything. But you got a big labor cost that adds up on that thing. So
Right.
and then just the morale and the headache for the teams. They don't like to do that stuff.
Well, then you got
Yeah.
slime, you get slime buildup on the floor, you get it on the walls, you get it on the wraps, so as much as you can minimize that, is very beneficial.
Yeah. And the customer wins at the end of the day because then the product is performing, there's less clogs and less,
Correct.
it's not shooting through peanut butter trying to perform. So I
Ensuring
think it's
a
a
consistent product.
Yeah. So, a hot topic around this time of year is the change of temperature, the change of season. As a lot of these operators and people that watch us in the future head into the winter and the colder months, how can an operator, take that into consideration with adjusting whether their chemicals or any other parts of their wash process to kind of mitigate the change with the winter? Jamie, I'll start with you from your seat in the lab, what's the best thing that an operator can do to effectively have like a 30 to 50 degree change in temperature and a change of humidity, a change of what's on the vehicle as far as if it's salt or brine or all the other elements that come with winter travel.
Yeah, so as the temperatures cool here, we're obviously losing some of the impacts. I mean, warmer temperatures help us clean. So you might have to boost up some of your cleaning concentrations, kind of compensate for those lower temperatures. Also remember that the product draw, like as things cool down, they become a little bit more viscous, so it's a little bit harder to draw. So you might be using less chemical then at that point. So keeping that in mind. And again, if you're doing titrations, then you're able to see what concentration you're at and if it's changed with that chemical draw. Also, soils can become more viscous as it cools down here, so they're a little bit harder to remove. And a big thing I like to say too is as we're moving into the winter months, storage of the chemicals and just how they are in your back room, keeping them up off the floor, away from exterior walls, because they do have different freeze points. The raw materials within them, they don't just all freeze at 32 degrees. Some can freeze at 40 degrees, 45, and then they'll start to separate out. So then you'll have inconsistencies out in the bay. So just making sure that you know kind of the freeze thaw points of products, everything's in solution, and you'll continue to use a consistent product then.
That sheet that you guys showed us while we were up there, that freeze chart was pretty cool. My team
Yep.
put that into our training manual, but seeing that chemicals can actually freeze at 40 degrees and some of them, can get down in the 26s before they freeze. It was pretty cool
Right.
to see the difference.
Yep. And then some are actually harder to then thaw. So even if they hit their freeze point at, let's say, 45, some of them actually need to get up to like 70 degrees to everything to go back in solution. So just kind of understanding those points from your chemical supplier, getting that information so that you're, optimizing what you have on site and giving your customer consistency.
Got it. We had a audience question come in, had two come in. Low pH or high pH on your CTAs. What's Vertech Labs recommendation first or second? Just people asking about CTAs and low pH or high pH.
Yeah. So generally, generally we tend to obviously recommend two CTAs. Um, and we will usually start with a high pH. And I think it's very subjective, but I think cleaning the tire and rim assembly first before we actually go to brighten it, I think is a good idea. So we want to try to remove as much dirt and soil and contaminants off that rim and tire before we hit it with the low pH to try to brighten the aluminum up or the steel or so yeah, generally we like to go high pH first, low pH second.
And would you say high pH, then go through some friction, apply low pH, and then go through some friction?
Absolutely. I mean, if you have the real estate for it, absolutely. I know there's a little bit of voodoo out there as far as uh, you know, hitting the high pH and low pH right on top of each other right away. Everything that we've seen and that Jami have seen, at Vertech is, there's not a whole lot of benefit to putting them right on top of each other. So I would say, yeah. So the first CTA we put the high pH on. If we can scrub that in, if get a little dwell time, again, remove as much of
But
that dirt as possible.
where should they apply high pressure at? Because I know a lot of people will try to do high pressure first or in the middle of the CTAs to, lift the surface.
Right, right. So I mean, again, it depends on real estate and obviously the equipment, but you know, best
100
setup.
foot tunnel, 100-foot tunnel.
Yeah, 100-foot tunnel, right. So usually what we do is, put the high pH on right away. So where the pre-soak arch is, first thing that's hitting the car is we want to get something on the tire right away and start working. So we'll put CTA 1 on right at the front. We try to allow, 10, 12 feet at least before we put the second on, and then obviously hit the high pressure after those CTA 1 and 2 have been applied.
Okay. Yeah, that's great. We have a question from the audience, and it says, can you speak more about concentration and getting longevity, more cars out of each chemical from a cost perspective? And then also, are there any scenarios where ordering quantities can decrease, thus decreasing the overall backroom footprint?
I think that's a really great question. Because again, when we talk about mills and we talk about titrations, it's two different things. So something that we do is, which we call, the Vertec difference is when we go into a customer's wash, we don't just look at, hey, we want to apply this chemical with this tip or even at this titration. You know,
Hmm.
by increasing or decreasing injector sizes, foaming applications, timing in your tunnel. If timing's off, that can be a huge expense. So I would say just, to get the absolute biggest bang out of your buck for the chemistry, make sure your timing's right, make sure your titration is right, and, anything more than just covering the car with chemical, you're wasting it. So if you're applying pre-soak with a 5 gallon per minute injector and may only need a 2 gallon per minute injector, you're wasting chemical, wasting water. So just really pay attention to your, application methods.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
That's great.
And I
So
think
I
I
have
would add
yeah,
on that point too, just even purchasing more concentrated products so that we're shipping less waters, then you're obviously saving money on shipping and you're storing more chemical in your back room than you are water. So you can dilute it out better. So I would look
yeah,
at more concentrated product line too.
Right.
yeah. It saves the teams back not having to move around such big jugs and
Yeah.
safety elements of unloading larger shipments and so forth. So I kind of have a fun question to wrap up our questions, and then we'll open up the floor for discussion and anyone in the audience that has any questions or feedback for our first Talk Car Wash Connect here. But in your opinion, Jami, what is the most important chemical in the tunnel and why? If you had to choose one, what is it?
If I had to choose one, I would probably go with high pH pre-soak because I think the most important thing is to get a clean car. And I think that's where the bulk of your cleaning is going to come from. That's going to go after your organic soils, your grease, oil, dirt, a lot of what you guys are finding in transportation soil out in the car wash. So I think that would provide the most cleaning. I don't think you can get a great dry car without a clean car. So I would go with a high pH pre-soak.
Okay. And Matt, same question, but you can't use the same
Oh,
answer.
dang it.
Ooh.
Well, then I got to start thinking here. Well, besides water,
Yeah.
um, I would say, let's see here.
Matt's gonna flip the script and go low pH just because she said high pH.
Well, no, I'm not even going to go low pH. I'm going to go a secret, a little secret that we have here at Vertech called our ceramic high foam.
Yeah.
Ah, there
Mm.
you go.
Yeah, it's a very, very, very uh, cool product that, Jami came up with.
Where do
It
you apply it?
does,
What's it do? What's it for?
well, I guess, maybe Jami, you can explain what it is. And I
Yeah.
can explain where we use it, what it accomplishes.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So this product came about actually when we were formulating protectants. We brought in all kinds of raw materials. Um, the interesting thing we found in the raw material that we use in this product is that is a super spreader. So it just spreads everything across the surface, really digging into the cracks and crevices. I like to look at it as if you were detailing. This would be your kind of clay bar effect, where you're going to get a really deep clean. Something unique to Vertech Labs. I haven't seen another company have something like this. We have it in different versions. We have a high foam version that some people will use as a standalone and put it through like banana foamers or kind of that rain bar effect. And then we have a low foaming version that you can dual draw into a high pH or low pH. So, and kind of boost the cleaning with that because it will kind of super spread that detergent across the surface, kind of reaching areas it may not have reached without the product.
And one of the biggest visuals with that product is, I mean, you can see it working right off the bat. The water starts to break, you know, right away after it's hit with this 50, the ceramic high foam, um, before it even gets into the drying agents. So I've had so many customers say, my car is drier than it would be coming out of the drying agents, going into the drying agents. So it really aids in cleaning and the drying process.
Cool. Thank you, man. We appreciate it. Does anybody else have any questions? We've got the chat box over here on our side. Got a lot of pros in here with a lot of years of experience.
Or Matt or Jami, do you have any closing statements or tips or value add that you'd like to provide our current audience and future audience?
Yeah, I mean, I would say I like to talk chemistry here and product development, where the products are used. We're very, I feel like, open, transparent with our customers. We love to have them come in so that they can actually see how the products are made, how they're QC'd, how we even do some R&D. And again, like you guys have seen, we do the Visit Vertech Day, which is about a 6-hour training session where we try to hit the nitty-gritty of a little bit how things are formulated, where you'd use them, why you'd use them there, and kind of the benefits they add. Try to put together a lot of videos and demos that then other people can show their team or even their customers. So if you're ever interested in visiting our facility, we love to have visitors and we love to kind of share what we do and share the knowledge. So
Excellent.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much for sharing and your participation today.
yes, thank you
Yeah,
for
thank
Absolutely.
having
you.
me.
Yes.
And we
And
Thank you,
Matt,
guys.
do you have anything you'd like to close out with?
Yeah, I would just say, never rest. Never rest. With a lot of competition coming in, a lot of big players coming in you guys' territories, you know, don't rest. If it constantly make improvements, watch costs, always put out a great product. And yeah, be the best wash in your area.
Awesome. Thank you. For those of you just on my side as an operator who switched to Vertech, tee up a 30-day trial with Tony and his team. You literally have nothing to lose. So really easy transition. I'll just leave it at that. And then, visit them at the trade shows, the booths. They're pretty much everywhere. I think Tony sponsors everything that's got car wash attached to it. So we appreciate everyone for spending some of their day with us. We plan to host these webinars every 2 weeks on Wednesdays with different vendors. If you need anything, reach out to Blake and I. Again, Tony, Matt, Jamie, everybody else that joined. We appreciate you guys. Everybody have a good evening.
Yep. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a great day. Be great. Thank you.
See ya.
Thank you.